Anthony Fasano from the Engineering Management Institute. I'm here at Coffman Engineers in Honolulu. I'm here with Jami Hirota, the Department of Civil Engineering Manager. And we did a full podcast episode that we're going to link to. But in this short video, Jami, I just want to ask you, you've had a successful career so far. If you look back on your career, there's often like big things that changed your career or was a driver of your career development or growth. Is there something that stands out for you that you could share with our audience?
Well, for 22 years, I said I married into the family business, and that was part of my identity. But it was also, it's gotten me to where I am today. When you walk into, and I wasn't the family. It wasn't my family business. It was my husband's. But it started to drive every decision that we made as a couple, and I made personally on my career, and thinking that it was leading to ownership of a business. And when I looked to leave that business, I was in the mindset of I wanted to get into ownership of another business. So that's, a lot of times people go into engineering not thinking about ownership and
the long term.
But it became, I didn't recognize it in my early 20s, but by my early 30s, I recognized that it was something that was important to me, and ultimately led me to leave that business to go into a different business that I thought I could be an owner of.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, and Jami elaborates about that a lot in the podcast episode, which we'll link to here. But the one thing too that I think is important there is sometimes the best decision is the harder decision, right? Like you could have stayed at that company and kept working there, but in order to make the change, you had to make a tough decision. You had a tough transition, which again, we talked it through on the podcast. And sometimes you need to go through that to get to ultimately where you want to be. And I think a lot of times people will just say, I'm just going to stick with this because it's easier. But, you have to think about your long-term path and, where that's really going to take you. So I think that's just something to think about in your career right now. You should take a look down the road and see what's ahead for you. And if you don't like what you see necessarily, or you're nervous, or you think there's a lot of risks there, maybe there's a decision that you need to make now to kind of alleviate some of those concerns or change that path. So, Jami, thanks again for doing this. We're going to link to the full episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast here, and you can find all of our Engineering Manager shorts here on our YouTube channel. Thanks again, Jami.
Thank you.